Hey, what's up, everybody? And welcome to a new episode of The Lowdown with your host, Lauren Marvin. That's me, and here's a new episode. So, anyway, I thought I would kick on the camera after just going through as much as possible. I've had a pretty rough week this week. I was sick all week, started out last week, had to take a couple days off at the end of last week. And here we are. We got to a place where I rested all weekend and then did my best to not be contagious for everybody while going back to school every day last week and just struggling to get through every day. So thankful for a bed, thankful for stillness and rest. It helps to get you through anything, one way or the other. As long as you got your mind right, you're ready to rock and roll. But anyway, here we are, guys. And, it's hard to get on this camera sometimes, especially when you got so much going on, so many different thoughts running through your head. And I swear to God, before I even start out, I spend so much time thinking about what I'm going to say, and none of it is acceptable to me. So at the end of the day, you just got to press that record button and get on top of it, right? And so here we are. So it's a Saturday. September 27th, 2025. And man, we've just been going through so much in life. Life's going on. Kids have gone back to school. It's been since the beginning of the summer since I put out anything live as far as being able to see my face and those kinds of things. And so I've got lots to share. Pretty fun stuff too. And we'll get to some of that along the way, But I had a good summer. I spent some time up in New York State along with my mother who, babies me, makes me feel like I'm, a few years old and needing to learn how to do everything all over again because she's just so good at everything. And so focused on everything all at the same time. But I enjoyed my time up there. Love every minute I get to spend with my mom, spend with, the nature and the mountains that she's nestled right in between there up in the middle of Beaver Dams, upstate New York. While I was up there this summer, I spent some time working a summer job. I thought that I would make some money this summer outside of the camps that we usually run for Paradigm Development Center. And so while I was up there, I applied before going up there for a job working at a fulfillment center for Amazon. And much to my surprise, what an amazing experience of both the onboarding process being so magical. I've never seen a hire happen like that before, where you have an offer before anything else has even happened. And then you go through and get your HR stuff done and you're already working before you know it. Wow, just an amazing experience up there. I did, like I would always say, it's not the official terms, but I slung boxes every day up there, and it was amazing. You'd come in the morning time, you'd know exactly the cycle and the process that, the shipments coming through were received in the morning times from the trucks, emptied the trucks off, chucked all that stuff onto conveyor belts, got it sorted through a three different sort process, and then reversed the process. Got everything once again packed up, ready to go out, either on local trucks or back to another shipment facility or fulfillment place. And you knew you'd done good if you did that before your shift was up. So, but it made for an amazing time. Got me some of the best exercise I've had in a few years as far as manual labor. Chucking those boxes all over the place at an insane rate was like playing football back when we were young. Get excited, come in, know that you were going to be wore out. I used to sweat my whole shirt through every day. Had people, they was trying to clown on me. What are you sweating for? But it was just hot in there and I was doing more work than I'd done in a long, long time. And when you're 47 years old, come on, man. Come on, man. It was fun. It was really good stuff, though. And I appreciate every part of the process. They make onboarding real easy. They have, a central site called Amazon A to Z where you can figure out anything that you want to do with your life, your career, anything in there. You schedule your own shifts. I was doing a flex shift position to begin with. And so you got to go in there, pick your shifts. If later on that day or that week you decided you didn't want that shift, you could just cancel that as long as it wasn't, too close to the time to do it. And it immediately pop up for someone else to grab and was probably gone as quick as you did it, And it just made it awesome. You'd show up, do your time, and you was out. But amazing stuff there, and the personal side of experience being up in, that was in Bath, New York. And so it's a small fulfillment center that had basically like three different routes for packages to come through. And just amazing, small crew up there. Things to recognize about, the American and the human side of things is, most of the people up there, they worked really hard. You didn't stick around long if you weren't willing to work hard, because you were going to work hard while you were at the shift. And it was a source of pride for everybody up there, for sure. Met lots of great people from all walks of life. During those times, it was getting pretty hot and heavy as far as deportations and things had started all across the country. And so, just kind of wondering about where people's positions were with that, working in these big organizations, and, just trying to feel our way through existence as things have changed so drastically since the summer began as well, But I just wanted to share a little bit about that. That was an amazing time, though. And while I was up there, really got to reflect on, myself, what goes on in the cycle of being a teacher every year, and kind of the struggle of the roller coaster ride of getting to the progress reports and then to the final grades and graduations and all the things that come along in this large cycle that ramps up a few times during the year and leaves you exhausted by the time the summer comes around. And just seeing about, as we move closer in life to, middle age here, being 47, and, a lot of my friends may be a few years older even, but just the way that, we get to a place in life and we're looking where we feel the way that our body responds to the effort, the movement, the work. And, we get to make some choices about how do we design our lives for the future where, we don't put so much wear and tear on our joints and our muscles. We don't go at it thinking that our body is still a 20-year-old body. And we certainly don't act like a 20-year-old no more either. Whenever we get up into situations and we, have grown a little, then we know now that we can act appropriately and respond to people even in their weakest moments and those kinds of things too, But I really appreciate my time while I was up there. And getting back, I came to a new situation. I started out at a place called Maxwell's House of Abilities. It's a very special organization that has both BCBAs for behavioral therapy for young folks with autism that really need help with just the normal kinds of motor functioning for their bodies, and beginning to, really have some reshaping of how they interact with others to kind of bring it more into alignment with, what can be better for them and productive and healthy for them and their families. On top of also having a micro school in the middle of the process. And so my services are being used over there as a teacher in the micro school. I got a bunch of fantastic kids that are doing their best and working hard every day in order to, really be successful, to be prepared for transitions into, their young adult life and those kinds of things. And it's been just amazing this whole time. The support I feel there, being able to be who I am as a person that's newly discovered over the past 5-6 years, about my own autism, and the kinds of, quirks and limitations that come along with making sure that my environments are supportive enough for me and, receptive enough to the kinds of weird insights that come from folks that are always looking at things from outside of the box. So there's that going on as well, and really enjoying it. Once again, we're pressing through to the winter break at the moment, and just seeing the transition of the seasons here as the squirrels have finally come back in our area has been amazing. That kind of brings us up to now, and here we are. I went through the summer and I had myself a hell of a summer, bro. Up in New York, just trying to get myself, my mind, my emotions regulated. Has been pretty difficult with all of the circumstances and things that have happened on a daily basis since since the summer began, and even before that. But things have turned so drastic for so many people that really are looking to relieve suffering of other people, to love on folks, to support folks, to not think evil of their neighbors, like all kinds of stuff that literally you're wondering if it's still present sometimes as we're bombarded with messages from social media to the regular news and media channels to when we go out to places and seeing what's become normalized all over the place. It's been a struggle, and I know good people with good hearts have done their best and had to analyze what it is that we're doing with our minds in this time. Now, I wanted to put out a couple things. Sorry about that. And offer some insights along the way about all this, okay? I try to keep myself informed as much as possible. And, I've shared with y'all before that my mind be running and racing and thinking about everything 100 miles per hour all the time. And so I try to keep it as occupied as possible, because thinking about the things that my mind wants to think about all the time would be horrific for me if I just kept my mind on them all the time. So, but along the way, though, the observations that have come along have been, troublesome. Not just in the way that most people have kind of observed the process that we've been going through here in this country in the transition. So, number one, I know everyone who, sorry about that. Like I said, I'm just trying to get over this cold at the same time. But everyone, that's good natured, everyone that watches any of the clips that I throw out, which are few and far between, are people that, really, I know, care deeply about other people, number one. Otherwise, my shit would be way too boring for you. But also are people that would genuinely be overwhelmed by the kinds of actions and changes that are taking place. And so for some of us, it may be the first time in our lives going into this era and this age where we're thinking to ourselves, boy, I really have to, reevaluate my orientation towards how I take in information, need to regulate more tightly the way that I focus on things and talk about things, to rehash or bring those back up. And then another big one that I've seen specifically for myself and in pretty much every good-natured person that I've seen is that we've got to reevaluate the concepts of friendships or linkages and connections through social media as well, recognizing how much of a great impact having people speak so abusively and spread such wide nets on their projections of other people that we all thought were the same as us along the way. And we also had no reason to filter much out because folks hadn't coalesced around so many polar opposite realities as the way that the systems out there have particularly been positioning us towards each other. And the only thing that stops some people from sharing all of their views in abusive ways is that they do care about not abusing other people just because we have thoughts in our head, or because we know that something is right, or because we fear the danger of the pathway that someone is going that's going in a wrong direction even. And what we do with those used to be something different than it is now. There wasn't the proliferation of trolling. There wasn't the proliferation of digital bullying by grown-ass people that would put us in a sense of feeling danger and feeling surrounded by ill will and ill intention, which, by the way, just people that spread lies at all are committing violence on those that believe that what is true matters, what is true is a basis for us to relate to each other from, what is true is a basis for each of us to humble ourselves in front of, and recognize the weakness that we all have, especially as we're a small portion of such a great and fragile and magical thing that we call a society, a larger organism that we're only a small portion and our interests are only a small portion of. And we've got to do that work. And so I've seen so many folks that have struggled throughout the last 6 months of having to set boundaries, of unfriending those folks on Facebook and deleting Twitter and all the rest of the things that come from folks that have found it's a dire situation for their mental diet, for their emotional regulation, and for recognition of some of those things that are a part of how the mind works. That if you surround yourself with negativity or abuse, then you're going to feel negative and abused. And we're all longing, with every bit of hard work that we do, with every bit of relationships that we've ever formed, we're all longing for something other than negativity and abuse. We're longing for love. We're longing for acceptance. We're longing for flexibility with our own situations, as we recognize nobody's situation is our situation, and yet we have so much in common as humans. The weaknesses of our ability to satisfy multiple interests at the same time is not our frailty, it's just reality. And so we'll have to live in a world where we begin to smell the smelling salts, recognize that we don't have the options at this point in time any longer to really hold relationships with people that are set on abusing others, with people that are set on believing that every opinion is valuable on every subject, and especially those that can cause hurt to other people, especially the less accurate we're describing the situation. We used to know that speaking truth was healing. And healed people can heal other people. Healed people can be flexible enough to allow other people to learn by mistakes, learn by reflection, and learn any way that it comes at them, and be flexible enough for us to handle those things. And yet it's very difficult in the era that we live in. There is no good faith in communications. These things are, and once again, I could tell you this a million times over, these things are inherent in capitalism. These things are inherent in politics. You know, the struggle for power. These are books that we can read as adults if you'd like to. They exist out there. And they aren't coming from those folks that are currently being paid on either side to represent us, supposedly. But we've had folks like Albert Camus that very eloquently talked about the dilemmas of power and the struggle for power. We can be educated. We can understand that this isn't the first time we've come to reactionary, normative reactionary political ambitions. That is our history. It's been our history. You could read our history. It is definitely one of trying everything to avoid accountability. Everything. From the get-go. But as an individual, you could grow up, even if the nation doesn't want to. And yes, there are dilemmas that come along with being a person that wants to find sobriety in the midst of what's going on out here. There are consequences. And we're all going to pay the consequences. There are consequences for just existing within the boundaries of someone else's influence. That is the daily and the living struggle that we all go through. So some of these hard truths, as we come to this point, okay, that are really important for us to recognize at this late stage in the ball game. Okay? I have read of resistance fighters. I have read about organizational power. And as of today, out of sources both from right, far right, centrist, left, far left, it is very scarce to hear anyone speaking soberly about the kinds of coalitional and popular formation of the interests of humanity in the United States is completely absent. Those that have spent their life observing the problems with the Republican side are just reporting on the problems with the Republican side now, completely still believing that we will be able to count. We, the United States of America will be able to count on the Democratic organization, the machine of the Democratic Party, to number one, muster up some kind of orientation towards the fight that's going on. And by the way, that's where the observation comes from. Hello, someone handed this United States over through everything from, blind ambition to remain in power, to tokenism in response to late in the ball game, needing to course correct, to that tokenism laughing in the face of Americans with what was not offered to Americans with the coming wave of fascism nipping at America's coattails. Zero offers. They had abandoned everything. They abandoned the right to health care. They abandoned, within a quick 5 months, they abandoned, the right to not touch Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. They were there to help us forget why we needed it so much. They were right there with us. No other choices, just two parties. And we think that we're going to be able to count on this party. But I promise you we can't count on this party to do anything more than it's already been doing. Bushwhacking power from people that need real support, real cooperation from anything that could call itself a government. These people haven't put forth a plan at this point about how to bring it back. They haven't acknowledged that there's no such thing as a constitution any longer, that there is no reason to act as if something is or is not constitutional. As we've already seen, budgets completely ignored. As we've seen aggression and bombings all across the world. We called those peace efforts. There has been zero accountability. It comes in small doses to see that there's some parts of the judicial system holding out and at least creating decrees that these things are unconstitutional. But we're still at the point where we're just not recognizing that we have our military on the streets in America. Habeas corpus, challenged and abandoned. Concentration camps, sold to the highest bidder. And when we say highest bidder, we're talking about, how about 500 million just to get it started, so that it can be around for a few months before once again being deemed unconstitutional, which we already knew, which means that nobody cares about the Constitution. As the Republican Party said, hey, we don't need to legislate, even though we run we run Congress, the House and the Senate. Democratic Party, fighting like hell. We got Zoran. He's the gleam in the Democratic Party's eye. Except the Democratic Party hates him. The machine, of course. You know, the thing that holds the power. It is unwinnable, and there is not a breath of fresh air through a Democratic Party. We have to break that stranglehold. There's no getting around it. I know that's bad news because and once again, y'all, well, why didn't you vote for third party last time or the time before or the time before that? Well, we know why. Because it has been useless. It has been a distraction because of the stranglehold of this two-party system that are all represented by the same money and the same people on both sides. And it is not us. But like I said, I told Miranda a while back, look, all the things that should be happening in response to the aggressive actions, in response to seeing the forced realignment of the whole world, security councils, efforts towards whatever's going on in terms of sovereign countries, all of it. With all that going on, there has been zero movement on the organizational front. That's one thing we got to talk about. That's a difficult pill to swallow, but it is where we're at. We know that this country has more guns than it does people in it, and some of that may be my viewers. With all the guns and the gun ownership in this country, isn't it amazing how little gunplay has been going on with all of the horrific gunplay that's been going on? We've got the military on the streets in major cities. I remember years ago when Ben Shapiro used to talk shit when he thought he was being reasonable to these right-wingers, and he'd be like, I love the Second Amendment, and the only reason that I believe in it so much is for that last part, because someday we may have to raise up against our government. It's right, Ben. Someday you may. And that's also why lefties have guns too, and everyone in between. Americans own guns. Ain't no raising up happening, no, huh? People still chucking plastic bags with glass bottles in it at cars. Ain't seen one person shoot a tire out of a car yet. They ain't hit one news channel. Oh, it popped off in Chicago. It popped off in... Nope. You're talking about lone shooters doing mass shootings. Mostly on our schools, on our kids, just like always. You know, the badasses out there. But we got ourselves a tinderbox. They're constantly moving pieces into place. And here we are. We ain't even got any answers for it. We don't have no offerings. I remember, when the Supreme Court came back on the other side of things and they was like, hey, you know what? The President of the United States can't commit crimes while he's doing his job as the President of the United States. Literally, Having watched the President of the United States commit crimes while being the President of the United States already. And what we had was a Democratic president at the time who was like, "Oh, folks, I can tell you right now, I'm such a good man, I'll never use that new ability that is anti-American, that is unconstitutional and always was, that literally was never a part of what has been afforded to a man in office other than the genteel way of dealing with those on their way out of office." No, we don't ever prosecute those folks for things that they were doing while they were in office. Cool. Glad we changed from no man is above the law to no man but one person who breaks the law every day. I guess we'll be okay with that. In the new country that we have, all we got to do is win back the presidency again, right? And if we win back the presidency, then it's all better again. We can go back to not worrying about a filthy president, I guess. And we'll just still be living next to our next door neighbors that, as we have more bad news, have continuously been sharpening and preparing their weapons and saying, "I'll be damned if those lefties are going to mess with us," while we was learning meditation and normalizing yoga pants. Thank the Lord. Thank the Lord for yoga pants, okay? But while we was normalizing all that shit, they was normalizing the rebellion, right? Old Betsy Ross assing it. Now you open up your door, all you got are Trump flags on the other side of the road. I remember having to explain to my mama up in upstate New York, not this year, but in years past, look down a couple houses down from where she's at. There's a man flying a Confederate flag in the middle of Beaver Dams, New York. Now, my mama's a person that was so patriotic, she was a part of the Support the Troops campaign, Yellow Ribbons, during the first Iraq War. And once again, I understand the complexity of that movement. But we're talking about a patriot there. We're talking about a person who loves her country. And I'm describing to her about, how all the people that she grew up around were on the other side of the war from the man down the road, apparently. And that every single one of their sons and daughters, their sons specifically that went off to war, fought so we didn't have to have no fucking Confederate flags flying up in our neighborhoods in upstate New York. And that obviously the police force in town and all the goddamn patriots in the neighborhood couldn't figure out what to do when one instigator showed up in some rural backwoods ass small town in upstate New York. And yes, you can drive through the countryside and see more than one Confederate flag in upstate New York. Ain't that awesome? I wonder why that's important. Anyway, y'all, the news don't get any better with some of the other stuff, but I did want to get back to the other part that a lot of us have had to make these decisions where, hey, I'm just not gonna, I have a personal feed that supplies, flawed as it may be, what Facebook and these social media sites do offer to come down your personal feed. Half ads, half stuff that was, literally just scraped from listening to your always on recording device. But to have them serving up folks that we recognize as people that we grew up with, people that we served in the military with, people that we've had jobs with, people that we've helped others and loved other people with, getting on there to tell you to shut the fuck up and to shame you for believing that people have value regardless of their choice. They want to get on there and harass you even after you've separated or muted their content from your own page, which I know multiple people that's been the case. You go ahead and you silently, without any friction or effort, you let someone go who can't muster up enough energy inside themselves to put any positive content out there on your page. And you get a private DM talking about how you're a weak person for taking care of your emotions, for setting boundaries without the friction. So there's nowhere to go. You're not getting away from the antagonization till you do all that work. And so many people have had to do that work. And once again, another thing that we need to discuss, because this society that we live in has a professional machine for laundering reputations. And we know it. We've seen it on television, and you think it only goes for the stars. It doesn't just go for the stars. Dancing with the Stars is not about people who are really good at dancing. It's about fucking low-tier entertainers and people that had limelight at one point that went out and bought too much shit with all that celebrity money, and they can't sustain that lifestyle, and they need a second wind. Next thing you know, they got a fucking mask on television, singing out of key and auto-tune and shit, trying to look normal. And you're like, hey, didn't you murder 1 million Iraqis? You look normal. Look at you jitterbug like a fucking pro. I hope you go all the way. You seem so nice as you smile on television the whole time. And then you'll have these motherfuckers out here that were on our pages before, trying to tell us that the only reason they were for supporting Israel is because they have a right to defend themselves by annihilating all inhabitants of Gaza. They didn't do it because they were racist. They just couldn't see the humanity in Palestinians, I guess, It is pretty tough. Because then they'd have to go on the pages of those folks that they were too busy talking shit about and to every day over the last 2 years. So we got to deal with all that stuff. These people on the other side of any change that happens are going to reposition themselves as being not a part of what took place. Not a part of the cover for January 6th. Not a part of this obviously legitimate election that we had, where a guy who can isolate every single normal person from his campaign by using the most racist dog whistles known to man. They eating the cats and the dogs. They eating the pets of the people that live there, while talking about the people that live there. Can completely cut himself off from anyone of sound mind and body. Go pull off a popular upset. Gotcha. I believe it. It was the greatest upset of all times. It's interesting how it all works, though. But anyway, these people are also going to still believe they know better than everybody else in the new world. They're still going to believe that they need to lord their know-it-all sense of what people should be doing over everyone else. They're still going to be doing it, as they have been throughout generation after generation after generation after generation. It's something to behold in these days, though, ain't it? Anyway, this is an hour of complete BS. You take a look at it. Just getting some thoughts and some updates out there for y'all. If you've made it this far, which I'm sure you haven't, that it'll be there for, historical sake down the road or whatever. But nonetheless, hey, I plan on doing a bunch of different kinds of things, when time allows and when the energy and the creativity are able to be there. I plan on doing a bunch of different projects, working on things that are more thematic towards psychology, mental health. Specifically, I'm going to do some things on autism, on special education, and then, just the other stuff too, the everyday living, the struggles that come along with that, sharing about my life, Naomi's life, Miranda's life, as much as they'll allow and as much as I can do in the process. But you know what? We need to be together. We need solidarity that is experienced. We need to know that we have each other's backs in a way that we've never had before, because we got some hard times coming, y'all. I mean, if you study economics, you know that. If you study sociology, you know that. If you study politics, you know that. We got some real wake-ups that we have to go through as people here in America and recognize the things that, number one, we needed to reform previous to this new era that we live in. There was so much that was begging to be taken care of, made better, about every aspect of life. The tensions that are there between the convenience for us as Americans and the reality about what it takes to actually make that function and be there for us are so in deficit from each other. We're going to have to reckon with those things. We're going to have to build sustainable ways of living in a very changing atmosphere. Okay? And I know we're going to need support to do that. I know I do. I know me, Miranda, and Naomi feel as isolated as ever all the time. Being in a special needs family makes it very difficult to, really have the resources, the energy to push through and connect with people in a genuine way. That's one of the reasons that I always have a desire to be on here, at least, letting people see what I can share about my own experiences, because I don't socialize enough. There's a lot of reasons for that. We'll get into all those along the way, but I don't socialize enough. But I need to be social. I need to, really share what really drives me as a person to help other people, um, and really the insights into just, how people function, the struggles that we go through, how hard we make it for each other, how hard society makes it for people. All those things are real. We deal with them every day. We pick up all the slack. We're left holding the bag. We're responsible in the individual way for those things that literally are only designed by society, for us to be in the red on at all times in our personal lives. So we've got all those things, and it's like, man, there ain't nobody out there connecting us together and letting us know what we need to do or how we can manage in ways that are healthy for us as a society, where we're not like raising psychopaths, and we're not, putting in nursing homes folks who are discovering their antisocial behaviors every day and all the rest of this shit, bro. Like, we need a way for us to have access to vulnerability, access to healing, access to support, all kinds of support, and I know even from my wonderfully low on the totem pole life that, I've really found that support both in Miranda, my wife, but in my mom as the primary support for us. I've had very few sustained close friendships, but love for every single one of them. I explained to every single one of my great friends that there's this radius around where I live that it becomes pretty incredibly tough for me to continue to connect with people when they're outside of that radius. And it's hard for me to describe all the reasons why, but they're there. So anyway, thanks for listening, and peace in the Middle East, y'all.